Breakups. By their simplest definition, they're the term for when something shatters apart into pieces. If you're older than 8, instead you understand the way the term works functionally in our society. It's the separation of two people who once were a thing, mostly romantically, but not today. Both of the men who are subjects of this video have wives and children, and these children are old enough that they might potentially be old enough to be my parents at this point. Instead, I think it's time that we go back and look at the single biggest breakup in the history of animation. This is the falling out of Micheal Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg. Bit of a disclaimer also in this intro. Now, normally when we go through things, we'll have more sources throughout the story, but my information here has been taken from the book Disney War. It's this fantastic book that I have as an audiobook, and I just want to specify that for this video, it's gonna be like extra built from a book story, but also twisting it to be my own story, because so much of what we know about this era of Disney's history was researched by the book's author James B. Stewart. At the turn of the millennium, he was able to research Disney in a way that no one had been able to do before and since, because no one's gonna be able to do it again because of how deep he went in and essentially used Eisner's words to him to expose everything about him. And I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to do this kind of research into Disney as a company again. It's kind of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of thing. If they let another reporter who's known for investigating corruption within like Washington into the Disney company again, they know it's going to go badly. But no, this isn't me disrespecting Disney War. It's one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, and I think it's time we get into the subject, shall we? So, when we're diving into when these two first met, it's at Paramount Studios, where Katzenberg started there in the year 1974, before Eisner was poached from ABC in 1976. Quickly, Katzenberg rose his way up the ranks, to the point where he served as the studio's president of its production. Eisner and Katzenberg had a connection there. Both were Northeasterners, and despite their age differences, the two men shared, honestly, one of the most strong ambitions you can see in film. The two would work at the helm of Paramount for 8 years together, until things changed. The year is 1984, and there's a fire at the House of Mouse. The years since the passing of Walt Disney have left the once creatively driven studio to free fall in its own relevance. Its animators were rarely releasing projects, and worse, poor creative leadership has led to Disney's stock prices plummeting, which, in the world of film or any kind of business, a plummeting stock looms the threat of hostile takeover. Roy E. Disney, who's the son of Roy O. Disney and the nephew of the one and only Walt Disney, was worried about the end of his family legacy. So quickly, he soon would rally the board and approach Micheal Eisner and ask him to be the next CEO and president. Eisner arrives at Disney. He takes a quick shine to this new role and shares power with former Warner Bros. Executive Frank Wells.
Frank Wells, actually, I went to college with. Frank and I went back that far, which was at the time, 35 years before. And off and on kept track of each other and knew each other through my wife's brother, who had an advertising agency. He'd been using Frank as his attorney and put Frank on his board of directors and along with me, and that was when Frank and I got back together in the 60s sometime.
This duo quickly brings Katzenberg over from Paramount to become the head of the production studio, but neither man really wants Katzenberg to make like as much as them, so they're like, hey, here, we can make a deal with you where you can earn 2% of whatever anything he greenlights makes. That's merchandise, that's the film's revenue, that's DVDs, everything. Or VHSs in the time, yes. But that's everything. And the rest was history. Now, this deal, when it was set up, They didn't think this would amount to anything, because 2%, like, this is a flopping studio at the moment. Good luck, Katzenberg. Go do your Katzenberg things. And this little display of disrespect is gonna bite them in the butt. The triumvirate of Eisner, Wells, and Katzenberg bring a lot to the film world to its knees. They turn Disney from this minor player into the playmaker going into the 90s, and even more creative partnerships come on the horizon. Despite the success, though, there's a rising tension at Disney, and that comes down to succession.
I knew Micheal as it happened because he had come onto the board of California Institute of the Arts a couple or three, maybe years before that. And so I'd met him at a Cal Arts functions and knew him a little, and thought he's a pretty smart guy. And so he was one of the calls, many calls, and I was one that I thought, well, maybe I could return that call.
A company's duty winds up being to its future. If you hold power at a company and are an essential personnel, you should be deciding who your successor is as soon as you can, so the company can stay alive. That's business knowledge as far as it goes. But also, you shouldn't go back on promises you make, right, with what you say. So a good thing to plan is who's going to replace you or any other essential personnel to your company. And while Eisner never planned for his own leaving, he certainly prepared for the leaving of his number two. The system set up was that Katzenberg was the designated successor to the company's Frank Wells. Through his time at Disney, Frank Wells had a reputation for being the voice of reason in contrast to the absolutely eccentric Eisner. He was good at keeping Eisner in check, and despite the stress that was placed on him, Frank Wells did a pretty fine job at it for about 10 years. And that's until April 3rd, 1994, where Frank Wells' life would be lost after a helicopter accident while he was skiing in Nevada.
It's a somber mood that hangs over the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California today as Hollywood says goodbye to Disney's late president, Frank Wells. Wells died when his helicopter crashed in mountainous northeast Nevada last week. He was 62. He was returning from a weekend ski trip. Many celebrities and executives are expected at today's memorial service. It will be broadcast by satellite to Disney's theme parks around the world.
I think one of the things that scares me, and I think it scares a lot of people, is that your life can end at any moment and you can't change that fact. You can minimize the risk, you can try to do whatever you can, but you ultimately have no control. And freak accidents like this happen all the time, and they embalm the tragedies around them. So you're gotta be wondering, where does Disney go from here? They just lost one of their big three positions of power. And like, my mind would jump to replacing Wells with Katzenberg because he's proven himself to be successful. Katzenberg and Roy had both managed a lot of the animation division, gotten that on track to the point that we had the Disney Renaissance to begin with. Eisner and Katzenberg were at least allies for 18 years. But despite 18 years of trust between these two that should have been building, Eisner decides not to give Katzenberg a promised position and instead claims the presidential title for himself. And in turn, this leads to dissatisfaction and the single biggest mistake of Eisner's career at Disney. It's the mistake that will lead to a very fiery breakup.
Jeffrey Katzenberg has garnered the lion's share of the credit for the studio's growth in annual revenues. The split reportedly came because Micheal Eisner, chairman of the Walt Disney Company, refused to promote Katzenberg to the number 2 corporate job.
When you boil Hollywood down, it's a game of egos. How you can satisfy yourself in a game of political chess. Claim credit, build your resume, and stand out better than your contemporaries. I also want to mention that I think Katzenberg himself is a flawed individual with ego problems himself.
We have the whole crew from Pocahontas and Lion King. And Jeffrey says, Pocahontas is a home run. It's West Side Story. It's Romeo and Juliet with American Indians. It's a hit. It's got hit written all over it. Lion King, on the other hand, is kind of an experiment. We don't really know if anybody's going to really want to see it. And after that meeting, absolutely no one wanted to work on Lion King.
What can you expect from filthy little heathens? Here's what you get when races are diverse. They're not like you and me, which means they must be evil.
But even by the terms of this game, that supersedes so many decisions. The move wasn't kosher. You don't really consolidate power when you should be able to trust someone. And Katzenberg had been hurt here. here. He did so much for Eisner, and loyalty was a key value to him. So in October of 1994, Katzenberg would exercise an option in his contract and leave Disney.
Katzenberg said he doesn't know where he's going yet. Sony denied rumors he's heading there. Sources said Universal was a possibility should either of its top 2 executives retire next year.
So, you might have missed it, but in Katzenberg's contract, he earns 2% of the profits of anything he greenlights. This, as we mentioned, didn't seem like it would be a lot in the dark age of Disney, but again, 1994 is a very different time, and Disney's gone gold with a string of successes that made them a powerhouse. Wells and Eisner had decided to evaluate this and found out that this was a duck-up, like a massive Donald of a duck-up. They literally called this investigation Operation Snowball, so they knew they made a mistake here. So Katzenberg's leaving, and the first thing he wonders is, where's my severance? So Eisner responds, what severance?
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
And then gets into legal misinterpretations, because you gotta get out of this however you can, right? Like, that's a lot of money. You can't just like send away to a guy who doesn't work for you, and things boil. One of the other things going on is that Katzenberg, out of Disney, now teams up with Steven Spielberg, who I guess resurrected the dinosaurs or something, and David Geffen, who's a name mainly known for music. I guess both of them are kind of big deals. I've never heard of them. I don't know who they are. Like, who's Steven Spielberg, guys? Like, what is a Steven Spielberg? Tell me what a Steven Spielberg is! But the three of them launch a rival studio, and Eisner's more mad than ever. It's like leaving to join the enemy is one step too far for him. Things boil, people talk, and it winds up resulting in a $250 million payment to Katzenberg in 1998. That's a problem for a company that's going through some stuff.
Studio president Jeffrey Katzenberg, petty asshole.
So, it's one thing to fail to keep a massive talent in an industry. It's another to pay him $250 million while he gallivants off to create your company's single greatest rival. The shareholders were frustrated with Eisner over this, and it in turn would be one of the first dominoes to fall and eventually get Eisner removed from Disney. The company that Katzenberg would create also is Dreamworks. Dreamworks would launch its own animation division. That animation division will be starting with Ants, which I've not looked super deep in myself to the whole Ants Bugs Life situation, but for other details that will go into another point, Dreamworks is Disney's first true competitor to the studio's domination of the animation industry. Because by the end of the 90s, Disney was entering a rude awakening at the box office. But I mean, they should be okay, right? I mean, they still have Pixar by their side. Pixar was a small CGI startup that happened and made Toy Story with them. And they've been developing into their own powerhouse in the world of animation. So as long as Disney was by Pixar's side, the main studio falling apart a little bit, which we'll get to again later, isn't a big deal. Unfortunately for Eisner, he'd soon be in for a rude awakening. But more on that later. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I think the ending should be giving you a hint at how the storyline is developing. If you've been subscribed over this past month, you know some of the pictures of where the project's going also. So this video series that I've been working on, right? This one that's been a pretty strong project of mine. It's actually 3 like video trilogies that all share a final part. The Mark Dindal trilogy, the End of an Eisner trilogy, and the Disney CGI trilogy. And it's, I think, experimental by video essay standards. Like, it's weird to have, like, people do series, right? That's how it kind of goes. Some channels are series, some channels are just, like, these massive sprawling little channel things. But the thing with this is it's trying to develop a documentary in these parts, right? There's gonna be a master cut of everything. And it's just trying to follow, like, 4 or so threads of how storylines have gone that kind of mesh together into creating a bigger story here about this era of Disney. So if you like this, share it with me. We had a different editor this time. It's my friend Lazy Bedhead, who's really cool. Like, Lazy is one of my favorite human beings to ever be born. She's so cool, guys. Like, go watch Lazy Bedhead if you don't already. I mean, like, we share an audience a lot, but go watch her stuff. Like, she is the best editor I have ever met alive. Like, seriously. Anyways, y'all are amazing. I am so proud of you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you in the next episode, which should be the Meet the Robinsons video. So, bye.